All right. Welcome everyone to another episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. Long time no see. I've been busy, life and everything like that, but I have a super fun guest today. And Justin, let's go. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Travis. Thanks so much for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all. We've been chatting for probably about 15 minutes already. Lost track of time real quick.
Sometimes I forget that we didn't push the record button yet. And I'm like, oh yeah, people might want to hear us actually talking about the things we're talking about. So I'm
Yeah,
glad we're
sometimes
catching
it's
up
good
now.
that I don't press record though. So it's
Yeah, I've lucked out a few times doing my show where I didn't press record, and in my brain I immediately was like, "Ooh, I'm glad I don't have to cut that out," because some people are wild when they come on podcasts.
Hey, dude, true. We always see those people on YouTube videos that accidentally forget to edit something out that's like incriminating or makes them look bad. You're like,
Dude, anytime I'm doing any editing or whatever, I always think of that one mom who like had her son in the car and was like, all
I
right,
know
now
that's what I
pretend
was
to
thinking.
cry. I think about it every time. Like, I hope that I don't accidentally leave in like 2 minutes of me just sitting staring at something because I was waiting for something to load during a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I 100% have done that where I've had I think I had uploaded a video and like it was just my chair or me like sitting here messing around on my computer for a minute and then looking at the camera and I didn't even realize that I didn't edit it out. And so it told me, I was like, so I just went to YouTube editor and edited it out. But yeah, definitely have done that before. So, but hey, let's go ahead and jump into who you are, man, how you got into jiu-jitsu and everything like that.
Yeah. So I am an MMA guy that went from MMA to pure jiu-jitsu. Like just growing up, I like playing sports more than I like watching them. I love to watch hockey, but I'd rather play it. And I got into watching the UFC because Rampage Jackson knocked out Chuck Liddell in like 2000. And I started watching the sport and getting more familiar with it. And I had the same kind of thought of like, well, I always like doing things more than watching. Maybe I'll like this. So I went and started training jiu-jitsu in like 2011, I think. And then by 2012, I had my first amateur fight. And I was just trying to cross something off a bucket list. I was trying to just like, yeah, I'll do a fight in a cage and then move on with my life. And then I won that fight and it was like, oh, okay, this is fun. And then I just kept fighting amateur, eventually turned pro. I had a really bad injury in 2016 in a fight. I broke my arm, had a bunch of surgeries, like bone infection, like not good. So I had to pivot from MMA to just jiu-jitsu because I was at a point where I was like, all right, my MMA career is done. I can't get licensed to fight because I have what's called a non-union fracture in my arm. So on the outside of my left arm, I was blocking a head kick and the guy hit my arm and it broke. And then the two parts of my bone wouldn't heal together. And I got an infection in that space. And now that there's still permanently like a small gap between my two bones. So like I couldn't get licensed to fight if I wanted to anyway, but for a lot of reasons we can get into maybe later, I was just done fighting. And I had to take about 1.5 years off of training anything, doing anything. And then when I came back, I just dove full on into jiu-jitsu, which led me to jiu-jitsu social media, which led me to starting my own jiu-jitsu podcast, which led me to jiu-jitsu YouTube. And here I am now, just trying to talk to people who like jiu-jitsu the way I like jiu-jitsu and trying to make the jiu-jitsu world a little bit better if I can and try to be a positive influence in jiu-jitsu. And that's kind of why I wanted to come on and talk to you today, because I think of you as someone who is a positive influence in jiu-jitsu. So we should just team up and be like double positivity in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, dude, 100%. I definitely, I started jiu-jitsu in like 2017. I think it was 2018. And even in my short span of my journey, I know some people hate that word journey in jiu-jitsu, whatever. But, you know, things have changed quite a bit in that short amount of time. I don't know. Luckily, I've been around a lot of people where our culture has been pretty good. You know what I mean? There's always those random people where you're like, man, you're kind of toxic. I don't really know if you're going to fit in here. But luckily, they've always weeded themselves out. You know what I mean? So that's always been a very nice thing. When you first came from MMA, pure MMA to pure jiu-jitsu, was there like a cultural difference between the rooms or were they pretty similar?
Well, for me, I was training MMA at the school I trained jiu-jitsu in.
Oh, okay.
For from white through brown belt, I was at one school, and then I moved schools because I moved and all that. So I've only ever trained at 2 schools full time. My first school and the school that I've been at now since like 2021. But it was definitely a shift in the room in the sense of like the way I approached the room because when you're training MMA and you're trying to make it a pro career, I was training twice a day, 6 days a week with the intention of like, hey, in a couple of weeks I'm going to go in there and try to kill somebody. And then when you switch to all right, now I'm training for tournaments and super fights and jiu-jitsu matches, I'm not trying to kill someone. I'm trying to just submit them and win the match. So it definitely took some getting used to in the intensity, in the this is my job, in the I'm going to be exhausted on Sunday because I've dumped everything into Monday through Saturday to get better for an MMA fight to, all right, I just do this for fun now as jujitsu is my hobby. That was a big shift. And I think that I'm very sympathetic to people who retire from MMA and you're like, oh, that guy's going to come back. Like he retired, but I know he's going to fight again. I always think it's a bad idea to do that, but I'm very sympathetic to it because when you have been singularly focused for years and years and years, it's really hard to move past that. It's really hard to go to like the next phase.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked to Nathan Orchard a couple of years ago, and he has a very similar story. He started off in MMA, was a high level wrestler, went to MMA, and I asked him, I was like, "What was the biggest difference, from like training MMA?" And he's like, "Well, I didn't have to worry about people punching me in the face. That was really nice." He's like, so I would start doing jujitsu, and he's like, "This is so much easier. I don't have to defend my face. I don't have to worry about getting punched in the face." He's like, "Now I could just focus on choking people." He's like, "It was a game changer." He's like, "It was so much less stress in my life."
Yeah, when you remove the chance that I'm going to training and I might walk out with a broken nose or a black eye, it makes it a little bit more enjoyable. It's not as stressful. It's a little more enjoyable to be on the mat.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't in jujitsu, roles can get carried away. People could be like, "Oh, let's kind of roll kind of easy," and then intensity really kicks up. But I always see reels on Instagram and stuff like that of like sparring matches. Like who's at fault for this escalating. Have you ever ran into like those situations in MMA and in jujitsu?
Yeah, I had a really bad situation where one of my teammates had an MMA fight coming up, and it was one of those things where we were just like 10 days out from his fight and we were just like working some wall work stuff and it was no contact. We were just doing like wall wrestling and sort of just miming punches and miming strikes and all that. And I had him against the wall and I was going to mime like a knee to the body because you need to still see those things even if you're not doing contact. And just terrible timing as I went to like mime that knee, he went to like counter wrestle and like shoot for a takedown and I need him right in the
Oh,
face and cut him. And there's he's bleeding all over the mat and immediately I'm just like, well, can I curse on here? Are you
yeah,
all
by
right
all
with?
means, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm like, well, fuck, I just like cost this dude a fight. You know what I mean? Like he's been training for months and he's got this fight and whatever. And fortunately, it was like a tiny little nick that was like in his eyebrow. He still was
Hmm.
able to fight. It was fine. But it's one of those things where it's like, if you're doing anything physical, accidents can happen. And I've always been someone like with my teammates, like I get more nervous for their fights than I would for my own. So when something like that happens and you're like, well, fuck, am I at fault? Should I not have mimed that knee? Well, if I don't mime the knee, I'm not being a good training partner. Should he not have done that? Well, that's how it's just sometimes accidents can happen.
Hmm.
And it's like, it's really hard to bear that responsibility and that guilt factor of like, I hurt someone. And in training, it's, you don't want to hurt anyone. Obviously, they're your teammates. They're helping you prepare as well. It is weird though how it switches to like once the fight starts and you're like, oh, I'm like I said, I'm going to try to kill this dude. Like it's very weird how like your brain can separate those two things. But fortunately, I can't think of too many. Maybe because that one was so traumatic, it like rings in my brain as that injury that happened. But I can't think of too many where I've been like, oh, I really screwed up. Somebody screwed up. We should put this on Instagram and everyone can vote who was the problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like in jujitsu. I've had people where our role has, gotten out of hand, or like one time I had its old teammate who also is a coach, excuse me, who said I let go. He was a higher belt than me also. I think he was a purple belt at the time, and I think I was a new blue or a white belt, and I had got him in like a north south Kimura, and he said I released too late after his tap. And I was like, dude, I vividly remember feeling going slow for the submission, or no, getting there quick and then finishing slow, and him tapping and me letting go. You know what I mean? Like I vividly remember, well, he took that me submitting him as an opportunity to like go 100% on me. And like I felt it right when that happened. I was like, oh, here we go. This guy's gonna try to smash me. So I didn't really even fight back at that point. I was more along the lines of like, okay, he's gonna like counter submit me. I already know he is because he's pissed off right now. So really like he would have did it anyways, but I really didn't put up very much resistance. And he finished with a straight ankle lock on me and got up and was like yelling at me and shit. And I was like in the middle of everyone. And I was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Like I'm a dad. I got like this is a hobby,
Right. Right.
whatever, you know. And so when like I get hurt during rolls or someone finishes a submission too quickly on me, I always go back to like I didn't like the way that dude reacted, so I don't act that way. You know what I mean? Like I'm like if someone finishes, I'm like, ooh. I was like, dang man, that was a little quick, but I think I'll be all right. And, you know, a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, no, it's they already feel bad if you tell them that you're
Right.
hurt. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's no reason to even blow up more. And
Right.
so I really try to keep that culture of like, dude, we're not baking cakes. If I'm gonna get hurt, I'm gonna get kneed in the face. I have a chipped tooth because I got I think it was a knee or an elbow. But all I can do is control the way I react, and I don't want to react like a jerk to people, and then them not want to roll with me and not have good matches. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think you need that for training. You need to be able to try really hard. And the more intensity there is to a round, like I always have had the best school for me, the best way to approach jujitsu, I think, is that I don't like a school that's like militant structure. Like we're face the wall to tie your belt. You can't leave the mat unless you ask your instructor. You like all that stuff. I think it's like overdone. So it should be a casual environment. You're there with your friends. It's a hobby. You're having fun. But once the rounds start, like we're going. Like it's intense rounds. It's high paced rounds. It's not flow rolls. It is actual rounds. If you're going to train that way, sometimes accidents can happen. And I've always been lucky that I've always had good training partners where, like, especially leg locks, heel hooks, that kind of stuff, it's very much catch and release. Once I grab your heel and I have it and you're dead to rights, I don't need to crank it. I don't need to put it on 100% because who's that helping? And when you're rolling with higher belts and more experienced grapplers, they know they're done too. They know where their line is. They know that they've been caught. And I think sometimes injuries can happen where less experienced grapplers view intense rounds as a fight. It's not a fight. It's just we're moving with purpose and we're moving with intensity. And it's just like any sport. Like I play hockey once a week, and it's you're skating as hard as you can on ice with a bunch of other people. Like you're gonna bump into someone. If I get mad every time someone bumps into me because he's looking that way and I'm looking that way and we run into each other, I'd spend the whole game mad.
Yeah.
Like if you want to do a physical thing, there are physical consequences, and you do the best you can to mitigate injuries and make sure you're training safely, but you can train safely and intensely. And if an accident does happen, you need to accept the fact that, all right, if you got tapped quick and maybe it came on too fast and it hurt your arm, you're going to accidentally do that to someone. You do jujitsu long enough, you're accidentally going to fall into an armbar too quickly. You're accidentally going to be holding a heel hook grip and they react the wrong way. Like you said, how you handle it is the only thing you can control. And if you can understand that, like, I might accidentally hurt someone in the future, I'd appreciate it if they don't scream in my face, so I won't scream in theirs. I think that's how you build a good culture and a good training environment.
Yeah, you mentioned in there intensity during rounds and stuff like that, and rolling with the more experienced grapplers. How do you navigate when you have white belts, junior blue belts that want to go hard, but they don't understand that conceptual move with a purpose, but don't be dangerous, right? Because I tell people all the time, I'm like, there's no such thing as a spazzy white belt. A spazzy white belt is just someone that you can't control. You know what I mean? Like if you can't control them, then they're a spaz, or it's your lack of skill for not being able to control it, which isn't like a jab at anyone or anything like that. That's just how I view it, right? Like there's not too many people that I can roll with where they can kick up the intensity, and I'm worried. You know what I mean? Like because
Right.
I've been doing this long enough to where now I can kind of know where I'm safe and not. I don't really necessarily see spazziness in white belts anymore. I just see inexperience. So how do you navigate that?
Well, I think you touched on it pretty solidly in that, like, they're not spazzy white belts. They're just unaware of how their body moves because they're doing something new. And I think a lot of times when we look at Like I definitely hold the mindset that I'm more likely to get injured against a white belt or a blue belt than I am against a black belt, because
100%. Agreed. Yeah.
a black belt is just in control of everything. And if you're fortunate to get to roll with black belts every day, when you roll with a black belt and then you roll with a blue belt, it's night and day. It's a stark contrast. So I think the way I always try to approach it with newer students and people who might get labeled as spazzy is, number one, know that going in. I'm not going to name names in case they listen to this, but I have training partners that I have to approach a little bit differently because of, you know, the way they approach training. I'll never knock someone for rolling intensely. Like, and that's part of why I always record the rounds. You know, obviously, like, I'm a social media guy, so I need the content for the gram and YouTube, but I also know that if I'm recording the round, people will give me more intensity. People, because I have a
They don't
rule.
want to look bad.
Well, I also have a rule that I'm going to post stuff to the gram, but if you do something cool, you make the gram. If you tap me, that goes on the gram. If you hit a huge throw or a nice takedown or a beautiful sweep, that goes on the gram. Because if it's content that I think people will benefit from seeing, even if I'm at like the butt end of it, people should still see it. And I think that's a fair trade-off to, you know, being allowed to film the role and whatever. So people come at me with more intensity that maybe they would in an off round, or I'm going to take it easy this round, because they want to make the gram and they don't want to be put on the gram. So I'll never knock someone for intensity. But when someone is definitely like on the spazzier side or more wild side, I try to just keep the mindset of like, I might compete against someone with this style. I might roll in competition against a person who's a little more wild. Can I control them? Can I use my pressure? Where can I put myself that I'm in the least danger? How can I avoid their elbows flying out? And where can I have control? I think if you can think about how someone else's game how your game can impact theirs, I think that's a better approach to then just being like, they're spazzy, so I'll just hit a takedown and go to side control. Let me find what is spazzy about them. Are they winging their arms out when they're moving? Okay, let me work on that like Dagestani handcuff. And sorry, that was a lot of noise. My phone fell down. Let me like work on that Dagestani handcuff and like control their arms so they can't be spazzy. You know, if they're bucking wild when I'm on the mount, perfect. This is a good time for me to work on really good mount maintenance, because if I can keep this crazy person down, I can keep anybody down. I think sometimes we're too quick to label the meme of the spazzy white belt, and that's just how they are. Let's use that. That can be a good tool to improve your own jiu-jitsu, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to test your skill, roll with someone with no experience. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, when I roll with lower belts now, sometimes I'm just like, okay, so this is what I work on today. Like yesterday when I was rolling with one, I was like, you know what I want to do? I just want to be slow and heavy. Like that's really just what I want to do, and just try to see if they can feel the like me methodically breaking down, you know, this every movement. And Brandon McCaffrey said it one time. He's like, when I roll with spazziness, he's like, I don't match people. He's like, I am so controlled and slow, because then it shows them like you don't need that. Like you just need to understand, and like you said, move with a purpose and have exactly the game plan that you want to do and be able to execute it. You don't need to be super intense, flying all over the place and whatnot. And not only that, but like you mentioned, when you roll with people, and like I used to record all my rolls too, because I think it's a huge tool for especially newer practitioners to see, what am I doing? Like the first time I recorded a roll and I actually broke it down afterwards, you know, I thought I was moving for the 5 minutes, but really I stayed in one position for a good minute and a half. And I was like, dude, in my mind, I was going buck wild right there. And I was doing all this and that. And the video, you know, like more, that's a lie.
Yeah,
And so
right.
that was a big thing. But I kind of stepped away from filming roles with people, because as my social media started to grow, I felt kind of bad because I didn't want people to think I was doing it. And maybe I should have more of that conversation like you do. I felt bad because I didn't want to perpetuate like I never get submitted, or I'm smashing all these people, or I only roll with people so I can make content out of it. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to push that culture of, you know, everything is for the gram. Like I gotta get all these fancy submissions, and then have people kind of hesitant to roll with me. So have you noticed did you always have that conversation with people beforehand to keep that culture of like, hey, this is kind of my job, I'm just doing this, but this is how I view it.
Yeah, so I didn't really get into like social media stuff until like right before the pandemic, and then obviously like coming out of it. Like, maybe it was like a few years before the pandemic, but it all kind of started for me where I was like, I noticed on Instagram that people would get like tons of views on stuff for what I would consider no reason. Or there was just like a lot of junk on Instagram and whatever. And I kind of made a concentrated effort to be like, all right, let me see how much I can grow my Instagram. Like I was just doing jujitsu. I didn't have any kids at the time. Like I just got married. Like you don't have a lot of responsibilities until the kids come along. So it's like I had the time. I was training a lot more than I am now because, children and all.
Amen. I got 3 of them.
I have 2. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and it's the best job in the world. Being a dad is the best job in the world. But I think it's also fair to acknowledge that I train jujitsu less because of dad roles, and I'm happy to make that trade. Don't get me wrong.
100%.
I love that trade, but I definitely had more time for content when I didn't have any responsibilities, as we all do. But anyway, I wanted to just try to grow my Instagram. So I started recording the rounds just so I had stuff to post. And then I realized that, like you'd said, like, am I just perpetuating this? All right, I'm going into this round because you know what? I need to hit like a good throw because the last time I posted a throw, it did really well. So I need to go for a throw. And maybe that's not really my game. And I'm doing myself a disservice and my training partners a disservice because I'm not having an organic role. I'm trying to force things to happen for content. And that's when I tried to make the switch to like, I record everything. And if something happens organically and it's cool, I'll post it, or maybe I'll do a breakdown of what happened with it. But then also trying to post content that was like, here's this sweep that I like, here's this leg lock that I like, and trying to build it that way where it wasn't so forced, which let me record the round and still get good training because I wasn't forcing content. And like, I said, it made people come at me a little bit more intensely, but I always had a very open conversation with the people I was training with where my phone's over there recording. If you don't want me to post anything, I won't. It's over there just so you know. And again, explaining, if you do something cool, I'll put it on there. If something cool happens that I do, I'll put it on there. If something happens and you say you don't want me to post it, then I just won't. And I have always made clear that consent to being posted can be withdrawn at any time. And just because I posted you yesterday, if something happens today and you don't want me to post that thing, okay, you guys are all doing me a favor by allowing me to record in the school when we're training. And I definitely think that recording rounds just for making yourself better, like you said, being able to review that film study and seeing what you actually look like when you're training is a huge tool. There's a reason every professional sport does film study. We should not be any different. We should have the same mindset. This film can help us get better. And obviously, help me grow my social media, but I've tried to approach it to do it the right way where it benefits me training, benefits the people I'm training with, and the people that I'm training with enjoy it as well because it gives them something. Like I've had a lot of people where there's one of my buddies who I train with, who I train with every single time I train. He's been in a lot of my videos where something will happen. I just posted one not that long ago. Something happened. He hit me with a wrist lock and he looks right at the camera and he's pointing at it. He's like, I got it. That's, he knows that's going on there. It's kind of like a fun thing where now it's something that's happening in our school that rather than me just being like, oh, my phone's over there, I'm not going to tell anyone. And then like, I'm posting, just I submit everyone. And then every time I submit someone, it gets posted, whether it's cool or not. Like I'm not posting just because I submitted someone or just because someone submits me. That's not what it's for. It's for, this is interesting. This can help someone if they see it. This can positively impact people who happen to come across my video. And I post a lot of stuff too that's, me talking about MMA or talking about jiu-jitsu. And I do a lot of long form stuff on YouTube where I'm giving my opinion. That's my opinion. I feel comfortable putting it out there. But as soon as someone else is involved in the video, I have to approach that content differently. Because like I said, they have to consent to being in that video. Like legally they don't. I can post whatever I want because we're in public. But like, that's a shitty thing to do. I want to have my friends want to train with me. So they have to have the final say in, whether something gets posted or not. So when someone else is in the video, when it's a video of training, it's a video of a round, I want it to be fun. I want it to be enjoyable. And I want it to make everyone better. And I want them to feel good about it too. I don't just want to be like, there was a video a couple years ago where I think it was Hamzat was training at Henzo's. I forget who he was rolling with. It was another UFC fighter. And he just was like he was like submitting them or controlling them or whatever. Probably should have remembered the details of this better before I brought it up as an analogy. But like someone posted like potato cam quality footage of Hamzat training with another UFC fighter at Henzo's. And it was like, that's a dick move. Like, neither of those guys said it was okay to post that. Why are you? But if Hamzat was recording and the guy he was rolling with knew he was recording and was okay with it being posted, that's fine too, because now that's, enjoyable content that can move things forward for people. So I think the approach is the most important thing. And you can tell when someone doesn't want to be recorded and when someone doesn't want their video on Instagram and on YouTube. But I think that if you're having an open conversation about it and you're at least upfront with, I'm going to post it if it's cool, you do something cool, please, it'll make it too. I think there's a right way that you can do it.
Real quick, let's talk about the importance of salt and electrolytes for a BJJ practitioner. And that's where today's sponsor, Salt Electrolytes, come in. Save 15% off your purchase at saltelectrolytes.com with code ElbowsTight15 at checkout. Once again, that's 15% off at saltelectrolytes.com with code ElbowsTight15 at checkout. Or use the link down below. Now, Salt Electrolytes drink mix is designed for today's warriors, athletes, and those who like to get after it and regularly get sweaty. Whether you're a heavy sweater that we've all seen on Instagram that needs a wet floor sign right next to them whenever they roll, or you're like a normal human being like me who barely sweats at all. With a light, refreshing flavor, Salt is great to drink during your workout because it will not coat your mouth that thick, nasty film that some electrolytes drinks out there do. It has the perfect saltiness that's as easily to make you want to drink more, making rehydration a breeze. And Salt keeps it simple, guys. There's only 6 different electrolytes with a touch of iodine to help maintain a healthy thyroid. There's no sugars, there's no colors, and there's no BS. So go earn your salt, guys and gals. And save 15% off your checkout at saltelectrolytes.com with code ElbowsTight15 at checkout. That's saltelectrolytes.com with code ElbowsTight15 at checkout to save 15% off. Because your electrolyte drink should work just as hard as you do. Thanks, guys. Go check them out. When you first started your social media content and YouTube and stuff like that, who did you draw inspiration from that you're like, these guys make good stuff and I want to put my own twist on it? Oh, you're muted. There we go.
It kept flashing like it was muted. I don't know what happened. Sorry. That's probably my fault. It was probably my fault. When I first started posting, I don't think that I was really viewing anyone as like inspiration. I think I was viewing it like, why is this person's technique that's not good getting a lot of attention? And why is there's so much bad content on there's so much bad jiu-jitsu content on social media. And my approach was, let's see if I can grow mine, or let me try to grow mine, and let me just film stuff, not with the intention of like, Lachlan Giles, so I steal most of my no-gi technique from anyway because he's so good and we're best friends because I interviewed him twice, so we're best friends.
He doesn't know that yet, but
he doesn't know. He might know that I tell people we're best friends, but that's not actually true. But I didn't look at it as like, I love the way he teaches. His videos are so good, I'm going to emulate that. I just basically was throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck, to see, can I build it up? Can I grow it? Can I increase my following? And can I get attention on these videos? And a lot happened during the pandemic where I had this backlog of content. I had all of this stuff saved. And at a time when like no jiu-jitsu gyms were open and people weren't filming stuff, I was just sharing stuff constantly that I had a backlog of my own stuff, or I would see something and I'd save it for later. Well, now I'll just share that, someone posted a cool technique and I'll tag them and say, hey, check out this person's technique. I like it. Here it is. So I was in a very small market, like there was no competition, and my following really, really grew. So coming out of the pandemic, it was like, oh, okay, I have this bigger following now than maybe I deserve, but I have a bigger following now because of the situation we've been in. I think I have a responsibility to continue to do what I can to post good content, to post positive content, to help people, and also, call out some of this bad content. Some of the it's a shame that it's negative, but that content does the best when it's, here's this really bad technique, and I'll put a bad technique up, and I'll label it, and I'll say trying content from TikTok, or trying content from Instagram, or trying jiu-jitsu from YouTube. I'll show what they did, and then I'll actually try it in a round, or I'll like try drilling it with someone who doesn't know what I'm going to do or what the technique is. And when it doesn't work and it's bad and whatever, that kind of stuff gets a lot of views because people, every day you're scrolling, you see bad stuff. And it can be hard if you're a white belt, a blue belt, to really know, is this good or not? And I think there's an appeal to authority a lot of times where there's certain people who do have credentials and they do have accomplishments in the sport, and they post something and it's bad. And a white belt goes, oh, that's XYZ person. He coaches this person. This must be good. And it's not. And I try to, instead of just being like, here's the technique, and then me just writing a caption and saying, this sucks, don't do it. Or, here's a technique, and it cuts to me talking, and I say, that would never work, don't do that. I'd rather just show trying it, because what's my opinion in saying it doesn't work versus theirs? Let me try it and see if it works. And it doesn't. And I've had a lot of positive response to that kind of content where people will say, this doesn't work. This never would work. Why would this work? And if I can post a video like that, and someone might see my video either before or after they see the original and see that it doesn't work, and not feel bad that when they went to try that original person's video and the technique didn't work and they feel like they're doing something wrong, or maybe they're not getting it, or they're bad at it, it's just not good technique. And I feel like there's so much that happens where, like, you're someone that creates content, you know what it's like. Sometimes you feel the pressure of like, man, I got to get a post out. I haven't posted in 2 days. I got to post something. Or the intentionally bad technique post, because people will comment on it that it's bad technique. And when people comment on stuff, it drives the algorithm to give you more views.
Negativity farming.
So, and again, I'm not going to name names, but there are people that I know are posting that way. They're posting stuff they know is not good, but they needed something to post, and they know people will look at it and they will say that it's bad, but they don't care because they are getting eyeballs and they're getting people to see their video. And I think that I found the best way to fight that is to just post the video and then show me trying it, and it doesn't work. And I get a lot of people who will push back and be like, why don't you tag that person? Why don't you comment on the video? Why do you whatever? I don't ever tag the person because I don't want to drive traffic to them. If I share a video and the person's tagged, you might see it and be like, oh, let me see what else this guy has. And you click on his page, you give him more views, and now the algorithm pushes into more people. I don't want any more additional eyeballs on them. I also don't want people to attack them. I don't think anyone, like the theory of large numbers, like you have enough people see a certain thing, anything will happen within that population. So like if I post a video and I tag someone could go to their page and start hate commenting or hate DMing. And I don't want that. I don't want to play any part in that. So I just put it out there. Here's the thing. If you see this, it's not good. Don't feel bad if you can't do it. Don't feel bad that it's not working for you. It's bad. Don't try it. And I think that that's part of the responsibility of having like a larger audience and in trying to impact jiu-jitsu and be a positive impact in jiu-jitsu is sometimes just getting out the negativity. As much as you want to try to be positive moving forward, sometimes you have to cut some of the negativity out to be a net positive.
Yeah. It reminds me, if you want to be like the Joey Swole of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. I love Joey Swole. And
I love his content, man.
I try to think of that too, where I posted a video the other day where I was rolling and I could see out of the corner of my eye, someone like wanted to walk by, but they didn't like want to walk in front of the camera. Just go. The camera doesn't matter.
It's
just
not that
walk in
big
front
of
of
a
them.
deal.
It's weird.
Not even a big deal. You're good.
It's not. It's not. There has been millions of times when something cool has happened in a roll that someone's leg is blocking the camera who walked in front of it, or someone is rolling and they've rolled in front of the camera and now my camera's watching them and not me. How can I be mad at that when I'm in a public space, in a public gym that I do not own, that other people are paying to be there too? And that's why I love Joey Swoll stuff, because his whole message of gym culture and what it should be like in the gym, I think that applies to jiu-jitsu too. And if I was going to be like, go that way, how are you going to walk in front of my camera? Go that, you see the camera. Like, it doesn't matter. What matters is you're here to train too. You are a paying customer of this jiu-jitsu school. I'm not any more important than you are because I set my phone up over there to record. Like, let's try to just not behave in a way that is a negative impact on anybody else. Like, let's just all try to be positive in a positive environment and have fun doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Honestly, the most that has happened when I've recorded rolls that caused me to lose content is me rolling out of view of camera. That's the biggest one. Like, we're like, we start at one spot, and then my camera set up for there, and it's, the FOV is like this big, and all of a sudden I'm like halfway across the mat, and I get a submission. I'm like, dang, that was cool. And I look, I'm like, I'm so far away from my camera, it doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah, I had this exact situation happen the other night. I was rolling with my instructor and we got in this really cool like leg lock entanglement battle back and forth. And he finished me with a heel hook and we got done. And he was like, let me know if you have that because I want to see it, because it had gone on for a long time. And the entanglement we started with was not where he got the finish from. And it was one of those things where like I could not remember where, like, whatever. So he's like, let me know if you have it. So I come home later and I'm like scrubbing through the videos, and all you can see is like the upper half of my body is in the frame, and then it's just a frame of nothing because we had rolled just far enough away. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, if we could have been like 4 feet the other way, this could have been such a good film study where we could have recreated what happened. Can't do it. Lost to time forever because we rolled out of the frame. It's the worst. It's the worst.
So when it comes to like your YouTube channel, then do you have like different goals per platform? Because I know you have like almost 60,000 people on Instagram, and then like 10,000 on YouTube. Do you have like different goals in the content that you put out on each for like staying positive or breakdowns and stuff like that? Like how do you dictate where it's gonna go?
I think right now for short form content like Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts and TikTok for 3 more days until it's gone from America forever, which I don't really use TikTok. I have them. I don't really use it.
Yeah, same.
The good thing about short form content is that you can post the same short form video to 4 platforms at a time. When I post to Instagram, it automatically shares to my Facebook. I post that as a short on YouTube. And occasionally, if I remember
Same.
that it exists, I put it on TikTok. And just as a side note, if you're trying to get into content creation and you feel like you're being frustrated that you're not getting views or whatever, there's a million content creation gurus who want to sell you a course that will tell you it's not the algorithm. Don't complain about the algorithm. Just make better content. Buy my course and how to make better content. I'm sure this has happened to you as well. I
Hmm.
can post a video on Instagram where I have similar followings on both platforms, similar numbers, similar number of followers. I can post a video on Instagram that gets 10,000 views, which is really cool. And I post it on YouTube and it gets 500 views. And
Yeah.
it's the exact same video posted at the exact same time. I've also had the reverse. I had a video that got like 100,000 views on YouTube and got like 5,000 on Instagram. Why? If you're going to tell me it's not the algorithm, it's the algorithm. So if you're getting into this, don't be discouraged. Put your content on as many platforms as you can. Some will go, some won't. It's just the nature of the beast. And if you try to time it, like, my audience views at this time, and on YouTube they view it this time and whatever. I've been doing this for a long time. I've staggered content. I've done Instagram at 9 and the same video on YouTube at 3 and vice versa. The algorithm is finicky. So please don't be discouraged and don't spend $1,000 on a content creation course where the guy is going to tell you, get a better microphone so your sound is better. Buy a camera. End of course. But somehow stretched out for 100 hours. Like,
Yeah.
but for the short form stuff for Instagram, I really try to be aware that When people are scrolling on Instagram, they don't want to look at my thing for more than 10 seconds, and that's stretching it. Get to the point. Here is a quick technique. Here's a funny thing that happened. Here's a 10-second opinion I have about a fight coming up. Like, very short, just get to the point and move on from it. On YouTube, the benefit to YouTube is obviously YouTube is a much longer form video. I like to approach that where I can do a more in-depth breakdown about a topic or a training blog. Like, I have a sub-bowling match coming up in a month. I'll post the long form video of like day of and the match. I'm going to post a video about the month of prep for that. Getting into like longer form stuff where people can see what it's like for me, what my life is like, what it's like. I like training. Should anyone care about me or what I like to do? Probably not, but I like making the videos, so I post them. And if it's enjoyable for you, that's cool. If not, I had fun making it. I just posted a video about Jorge Masvidal and his title runs.
Yeah, I
and
watched that one.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And gave it a thumbs up and like and subscribed.
That, my man, that's the only reason I agreed to come on the show is I knew that you might give me one like on a YouTube video. So that was all worth it for me. But when I make a video like that, like a long form video, I don't want to sound too altruistic here where it's like, oh, I hope people like it. I want people to be entertained. I want whatever. I was driving home from training a week ago, listened to someone talking about Darren Till, and I was like, man, it's kind of like Jorge Masvidal's career. Let me do a deep dive. And I have fun making the video, and I put it out there. If no one watches it, fine. I liked doing it. If 1 million people watch it, that would be really cool. That'd be, give me some dollars, and I'd like that. But whether people watch it or not, it's fun for me to do. And in both cases, long form and short form, I enjoy doing it. Like, the minute I'm like, man, I don't feel like doing this, I'm not going to be someone who's just going to be like, oh, I got to make a video today. I just won't. I try to approach it where, like, we talked off camera about, like, we do, like, I have a podcast too. And I do it because I like talking to people about jiu-jitsu. Like, we're talking today because I like your content. Let's talk about jiu-jitsu. It's fun for me. If it wasn't fun for me, I wouldn't want to do it. And I think, like I said, if you're someone who's getting into creating content and trying to make stuff for jiu-jitsu, if you don't like doing it, people will tell. People can tell that your video, you don't like doing it, or you felt forced to do it. Or maybe you're going to get stuck on my channel because you posted bad content because you wanted views, and I'm going to tell you your technique is bad. Like, make sure you like it, have fun doing it, and you should have an idea of what you want your viewpoint to be and what you want your message to be and the voice you want to have. But if it's not fun, it's not fun. And I don't think we should do things that are not fun.
Yeah, my buddy just recently got into more content creation, and his I've always like encouraged him to do it. I had him on the podcast too, and I always encouraged him to like, hey, you I think you offer a unique perspective because of your size, age, training in jiu-jitsu. I think people would really enjoy if you made content just talking about, you and how you train jiu-jitsu and whatnot. And he's like crushing it right now, posting almost every day. And my advice to everyone too is like, even when it comes to jiu-jitsu, like, I made the mistake when I first started jiu-jitsu. It was like every class I had to be there, had to roll as many times as possible, needed to go to every open mat. I have to get my blue belt. I got my blue belt in like 18 months, right? And I felt like I was crushing it, And I think the only reason it took that long is because I was in Japan for 3 months of that, It's like, and so I was just like crushing it, training a lot. And I kind of got burnt out when I got my blue belt because I was like, cool, I got it. Now this is my longest belt. Like, what am I going to do now? And like, I was like, I kind of like took a step back, and that happened too with like content creation. And, I always really enjoy content creation, but I haven't done anything in 2 months because of the holidays and like family and stuff like that. And, my oldest is 16, but I also have a 4-year-old and about to be 3. So our kids are very similar in age. So, exactly what I'm talking about. And so it's like it's hard to turn off the dad to content creator, the dad to jiu-jitsu practitioner, because a lot of times my kids are there with me at the gym, you know what I mean? And so my advice to people is like, if don't feel like you should ever force anything like that should be fun. No, I took 2 months off, and the whole time I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, man, like I gotta post something. I'm like, what does it matter? Like, I should be able to take this holiday time off for the first time in like 5-6 years. That's the longest I've ever taken off. And so I was like, and I told my wife, I was like, I got to get back to it because I honestly miss it, and I want to make content. And I just had a video blow up. It's so funny how you don't even know which one's going to do it. But like my biggest video so far is like 7 myths that white belts need to ignore, and it's not like 80,000 views right now. I'm like, this is amazing. I love it. But I didn't ride the train, and I made sure that I didn't ride the train of the views because I didn't want to force myself into, well, this one did great. Now I got to keep trying to redo it over and over again. So if you're like getting in like to all this to bring it back around, if you're getting into the content creation, to your point, you got to make sure that you're always having fun. Don't do it because you feel it's a necessity, unless it's your livelihood. Like if you do it full time, then that's a different story. But most of us aren't like doing it full time. Like
Right,
it was
right.
cool to get 80,000 views on a video that is me sitting here talking to a camera, giving my point of view,
Yeah, dude.
but it's not going to pay my bills. It made me some good money. It's not going to pay my bills. So I shouldn't think of like, okay, now for the next one. So I get more money or I get more views and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like jujitsu. Sometimes you got to take a break. Sometimes you have to step away from the mats in order to rejuvenate and to fall back in love with it. And like once I was a blue belt for almost 5 years, and I was like, I'm just towards the last like year of it. I was like, I'm just going to start showing up to have fun again. Like, I don't feel like I need to be there to prove I should be a purple belt or prove that, my blue belt or anything like that. I'm going to go there and just start having fun. And then what happened? I got promoted to purple. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Yeah.
like, so you guys got to keep that in mind if it's whether it's jujitsu, content creation, how do you keep that mindset of keeping it fun, even in like those low points of like training when like you're stressed at home, the kids are a lot, work and everything like that. How do you keep that positive mindset and keeping it around you?
I think that for me, I'm very much a person that I am aware that if I don't do some sort of physical activity, it negatively affects my mental health. And like, not to get too like holistic and all that, whatever, like, but for me, jujitsu is mental health. And there has been times where I have not been able to train, where I had an injury to my knee. I blew my knee out and had to have surgery, and I was off the mat for like 6 or 7 months. It's a dark time, and my wife will tell you there's times where she's just like, you need to just please go to jujitsu. Like, just please
Yeah.
go. Like, I love cycling. I love running. I love jujitsu. I play hockey. Like, I do a lot. I work from home, which is great because I have like, my bike is on the indoor trainer, and there's days where it's like work is just bugging me. Like, this is, I'm stressed. I'm going to hop on the bike for 30 minutes and just like take a break and just spin it out, and I can come back refreshed. And I've never really had the sensation of I'm burnt out on jujitsu. I've had the sensation of I'm burnt out on not doing anything. So
Yeah.
for me, and again, not to get like too hippie, like I'm not like, this is not like, I'm not super sunflower child, but like there's, because I had the injury to my arm, which I don't remember if we talked about that off camera or on camera, where I broke my arm, because we talked for a long time before we started.
It
I don't
was at the
remember.
beginning of this conversation.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember if anyone who's listening to this or watching this knows that I
We're
broke my
down some
arm in an
rabbit
MMA
holes.
fight. Yeah, that's all you need to know is I broke my arm. I had that long stretch of not being able to do anything. I had 6 months with my knee where I couldn't do anything, and I've always been aware since I had that first injury to my arm, like, this can all go away quickly and suddenly, and you don't really know when is the last time you're going to train. Not even like compete or fight or whatever. You don't know. I mean, I'm going to go pick up my daughter from kindergarten, and then I sure hope I don't step off the stairs wrong and blow my knee out and can't do jujitsu anymore. You just really never know. So I've always tried to have the appreciation for, I get to go train today. Whether I was like, man, my body's sore, I'm tired or whatever, I'm going to get to train today. And there's people who can't, there's people who won't. And I might be in that camp one day. I might be in the can't do it one day. So like, just appreciate the ability to do it. And I think that if you are having some burnout, like you said, if you're having a period where you're just like over it, take a break. Like, that's fine. Just take a break. Commit yourself to coming back. Maybe set yourself a goal where I'm gonna take 2 weeks off. I'm gonna take 3 weeks off. I think having like a timeline is good, because if you just say like, oh, I'm gonna take a break until I feel better, you might just never end up getting back there. But take a break and recalibrate. And once you get back on the mat, like you said, those times when you're trying to get better, and sometimes it doesn't work that way. Sometimes you need
Mhm.
that break. You need that mental refresh to get back on the mat and then get better. I think jiu-jitsu progress, it's not linear. It doesn't just go up and you get better, better, better. There's times where you go up, you go down, and especially when if you're not really feeling it and your mind's not in it, and then you're getting tapped by lower belts, and then you feel discouraged, and you can definitely spiral. I can see how that can happen. But I think if you can approach jiu-jitsu as something you get to do that is still kind of a secret, the whole world doesn't know how much fun jiu-jitsu is, and you're in on the secret, like take advantage of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Hey, well, Justin, I know you don't have all the time in the world today, so I like to end every episode with the same question. If you could give one piece of advice to a brand new white belt, what would it be?
Well, first of all, I do appreciate you having me on, and I would definitely make the time all day for you because this has been fun. I think for a new white belt, the advice I have given to white belts when they come in is be okay with how the first year is going to go. Like, be okay with losing. I don't think there's winning and losing in the training room, and there shouldn't be. But if you're a person who's coming in and you're good at sports and you're athletic and you've done well at things, you probably are not going to do good at jiu-jitsu. Like, nobody does good at jiu-jitsu when they first come in unless you're BJ Penn, and let's face it, we're not BJ Penn. So I've seen so many people get discouraged where they come in and the 65-year-old blue belt is smashing them.
Mm-hmm.
And they come in and the 15-year-old, whatever, I don't know kids belts. I can never keep them straight.
Yellow belt? Let's say yellow belt.
Yellow belt. I can never keep them straight. I've never been a kids instructor, so I can't keep them straight. You come in and 15-year-old yellow belt is smashing you. Like, it's really hard for people to confront that on top of the physical difficulty. Like, jiu-jitsu is hard. No matter how good of shape you're in, jiu-jitsu is hard. And I think if people can stick it out and know that going in, they'll make it to blue belt and hopefully continue to train. But if you come in thinking you're going to, you're a world beater, you're going to beat everybody up, and you get humbled very quickly, most people that quit at white belt quit because they can't handle the fact that they're not immediately good at it, or people that they think they should beat up in a fight, they cannot beat them up. Having to confront the realization that there are people in the world that you think you could beat them up, but if you had to, you couldn't, makes a lot of people quit jiu-jitsu. So the number one advice I give to people who train when they're first coming in, be patient. Don't expect to be good. If you happen to be good naturally, that is great, but expect to lose for like a year. And if that sounds scary, that's why I'm telling you, be patient.
Yeah, my white belt tears on Instagram. I don't know if you follow him, but he posted one that like blew up, and it was like a meme of like a guy, and it's like, I'm a badass, tries jujitsu. I'm a man child. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, or like
I'm helpless. You know what I mean? Like, it's so true.
Or the meme of the guy who just sees red and can beat anybody up in a fight.
Yeah,
it's like you can't. And some of my favorite memories in jiu-jitsu is when the super athletic football player comes in and realizes they're helpless. When the bodybuilder comes in and realizes he's helpless, and realizing that, 30 seconds of rolling for a person who's never done it before is an eternity.
It's crazy.
And no matter how good of shape you're in, it's just a different level of shape because it's cardiovascular, it's muscular endurance and strength and timing and coordination that no other sport gives you. There are people who are better athletes, and you can say you're a better athlete if you're a professional football player, but I still think that if Saquon Barkley comes into my school, he can't stop my takedown, and I'm going to have his back, and he's going to get tired quickly. He's one of the best athletes in the world. He's going to get tired quickly because jiu-jitsu is just different. And I think that that's a real hard thing for people to accept who've never done it before. And that would be my advice, is to just ride it out. Enjoy losing for a little bit. It sucks, but you'll be better off for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Justin, like I said, I really enjoyed this conversation about trying to keep jiu-jitsu positive and using content to help out with that in your journey and everything like that, man. And so I greatly appreciate everything. And if people want to follow you and check out your content, where can they find you at?
So I try to make it nice and easy for you. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's just Justin Lesko, my name, Lesko, Justin Lesko, all one word on Instagram. I have a podcast. If you like this podcast, if you like Travis's stuff, if you like his show, You will like my show. If you don't like his show, then you're probably not still listening an hour in, but you won't like
chance.
If you don't like Travis's show, you won't like my show, so you don't have to listen to it. It's called That Jiu Jitsu Podcast. I called it that because I found myself talking to my wife and I'd be like, oh, I was listening to that movie podcast I like, or I was listening to that cycling podcast. Well, now if you tell your wife that you were listening to That Jiu Jitsu Podcast, that is both accurate and the name of it. So it's easy to remember. On YouTube, it's just That Jiu Jitsu Guy, because I have found that if you have the word podcast in your YouTube name, it doesn't do so good. So
Check
That
it out
Jiu-Jitsu
too.
Guy. So at Justin Lesko on Instagram, That Jiu-Jitsu Podcast, and That Jiu-Jitsu Guy on YouTube. I hope I will see you there. Thank you so much for having me and for having a fun chat. This was a lot of fun. I don't want to presume to invite myself back, but I'd love to come back on in a few months and just chat again, because I had a good time.
We'll see how the numbers do, Justin. Let's wait.
You know what? That is very fair. That is very fair, because if people have hated me and have clicked off already, then do not have me back. But if we do okay, I'll hopefully see you in like 6 months.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate everyone at home. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching at home. Make sure you go check out Justin and all of his good content. And remember, no oil checks here. Peace.
Thanks, Travis.